The following is a paid program by the Whitley Law Firm. Welcome to Attorneys on Call, the program that gives you free legal information from the Whitley Law Firm. Now, here's your host, Drew Smith.
And thanks so much for joining us for this edition of Attorneys on Call. Very special show planned for you today, and we're thankful that you're here. If you're here for the first time, we think you're in for a treat because we're going to pass along a lot of great information today. And the topic that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on has to do with nursing homes. And so for many of us, especially those that have older parents now that could be transitioning into a nursing home, this is going to be very valuable information. So you definitely want to stay with us for the next 30 minutes. In studio, Ben Whitley and Whitney Butcher from the Whitley Law Firm. Great to see both of you.
Good to be here, Drew.
Ben, you are a personal injury law firm that represent people around the state of North Carolina. You've been doing this, and your dad started this firm many years ago. Kind of give us a synopsis of the types of claims that you help people with.
As you mentioned, my dad started this firm many years ago in eastern North Carolina, and now we have offices throughout the state, and we represent people. Not insurance companies or businesses. We just represent people that have been through something such as an injury or an illness, and they may have a disability claim. We help folks that have those with Social Security, and that can be a very daunting task. We also help people that have been in car accidents, serious car accidents, and have serious injuries. And what I do and some of the other attorneys in our office also help people with workers' compensation claims, which is that you get injured at work, or you may be taken out of work, and you have a claim for workers' compensation benefits. And all of these are very complex cases. We love what we do. You know, I love helping people that have been in this position, and a lot of times folks are stressed and they don't know what to do. They don't know what the next step is. They don't know where the check's coming from.
Sure.
You know, they may have to be making a mortgage payment, or the bills don't stop just because somebody got hurt. And so, for me, I've always enjoyed being a problem solver, and I want to get in there and help solve people's problems. So that's what we all do, and everybody that works with us, from our staff to the great smart attorneys that we have working with, really love what we do. One thing about our firm is that consultations are free, Drew, so if there's an issue that you may be having on the cases that I talked about, or some of the issues that we're getting ready to talk about, I would invite folks to go to our website. There's a lot of great free information there. Or they can always call the 800 number, and our phones are answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Awesome.
You may not talk to an attorney at 11 o'clock at night, but certainly that attorney will get the message the next day.
And Whitney, you do a lot of work in the area of some of the dangerous drugs that are out there right now, and dangerous medical devices and such, right?
Right. So we also, in addition to all the practice areas that Ben mentioned, another thing that we can help people with is if they've taken a medication and had an adverse side effect. If they've had an orthopedic device implanted, like a metal-on-metal hip or a knee implant that has been faulty and required a revision surgery. Those are things that we can get involved and help our clients with as well.
Ben, obviously people that are watching can go to whitleylawfirm.com. They can call that 800 number. They can email. They can get in touch with you, easily that way. It is free.
Right.
And it is in confidence, right? So if there's a particularly sensitive topic, they know that whatever they're telling you and talking to you about is in perfect confidence, right?
Right, and that would be the same for the nursing home claims that we're going to be talking about. Sometimes these are very sensitive issues, and families, it may cause a lot of anxiety to reach out to a lawyer. And when people think about calling a lawyer, they think about lawsuits, they think about court, and it's usually based on the television shows they've seen. And
sure.
So it may seem like a very public thing to do because you don't know what's going to happen next. And I would encourage folks to remember that the attorney-client privilege is a very sacred privilege that attorneys take very seriously, and that means that anything that you share with us is in extreme confidence, that we can't share it with anyone else. And that is true even if we don't pursue your case. So if we were to talk to you on the phone to give you some advice, and it may not be a situation where you may need an attorney, or in the nursing home situations it may not be an issue where you need to hire an attorney. There's other ways that you can resolve your issues. What you've told us is still in confidence. So I think that's an important thing to know, and I hope that puts families at ease. And we're certainly willing to talk on the phone.
Sure.
But we're also willing to have meetings in our offices in person. That may be a more comforting thing, to be able to talk to an attorney face to face.
Right.
And of course, we're also able to do email too. So I would encourage folks, if they've got an issue that they're concerned about and it's the type of case that we can handle, or even if it's not, we'll try to find you someone that can.
And speak about that a little bit, because
Sure.
every firm has its focus areas, and if it's a case that falls outside of that focus area that
Right.
that y'all do, what do you do in that case?
Sure. Like, for example, my brother Whit, who's a board certified workers' compensation specialist, and he specializes in workers' compensation claims.
Okay.
He's very good at it, you know. We also focus our practice on serious automobile accidents, tractor trailer claims, and Social Security disability claims. And these things that we do, and we believe we do them very well. And there are a lot of other firms that do them well as also. And I think you can't do everything well, Drew. I think that you must focus a lot of your experience on the things that may be a different practice area.
Okay.
And if that's the case, so one of the things that we've talked about, nursing home claims. So sometimes because of what we do and people watching this show, we may get calls from time to time on injuries that occur in nursing homes. And we do not handle those cases in-house. And what we'd like to do is that we really like to seek out the very best in the state. We want to find the folks that are in the trenches, that are trying these cases, that are getting results, and we want to join forces with them and bring them on board to help our clients. Now, we still stay involved. You know, it's a joint team effort, and we're part of this team. And John McCabe, who we're going to meet here shortly, you know, is the guy that we have sought out for nursing home claims. And I've asked him to come onto the show and talk a little bit about his experience and some of the cases he's handled and things to look out for and just kind of the things you need to know, because he's had the experience and he can talk about his experience. And I think that's very important.
How did you get to meet John initially?
I've known John a long time.
Okay.
He's a friend of mine, and I've also just kind of been an admirer of his work. You know, he's very active in our professional associations, and he gives kind of talks to other lawyers. So a lot of times John will be giving what we call CLEs, which are continuing legal educations, where he's instructing other lawyers, and that he's able to do that because of his experience. So I want to bring his experience to the assistance of my clients. And in these nursing home cases, we want to make sure that our families have the very best shot they can to try to, you know, even the playing field as best we can.
This is a very important topic. We are an aging population. I think more and more people are probably getting to that age where they could be entering a nursing home. So this will be a fascinating conversation. John McCabe will join us in just a moment. You're watching Attorneys on Call.
I'm Bob Whitley, the voice of North Carolina accident victims.
Bob helped me get the physical therapy I needed when a taxi driver hit me.
If you're hurt, I'd like to be your voice too. Call Whitley Law, 800-785-5000.
We went on vacation and I had an accident. Having a good old time, and then wham, in the back, we were hit. We were okay, because everything could be fixed, everybody was alive. When I called Whitley, I was comfortable with them, they were very knowledgeable. Phone stopped ringing, bills got paid, car got fixed, and they were there for me, and I really appreciate that.
For your free consultation, call Whitley Law Firm at 800-785-5000. Call us now and get the Whitley advantage.
I'm Bob Whitley, the voice of North Carolina accident victims.
Bob helped me get the surgery I needed when I was hit by a drunk driver.
If you're hurt, I'd like to be your voice too. Call Whitley Law, 800-785-5000.
Welcome back to Attorneys on Call. A special guest in studio with us, Mr. John McCabe. John, welcome.
Hi, Drew. How are you? Thanks for having me out. Ben, thanks for having me.
Sure.
Well, thanks for being a part of the program. Ben had mentioned in the last segment he's known you for many years. He's followed your work and very admirably about what you've been doing in nursing home care and claims in that area. John, tell us a little bit about you and your background and what y'all do.
I've been practicing for 22 years. I'm based out of Cary, have a statewide practice. I've known Ben for ages, and I've known his brother Whit for a very, very long time, and his dad as well. So we work together on cases. If they get a call in a nursing home case, they will obviously vet it out, talk to the client. Then they'll call me and we'll talk a little bit further about the case and see if it's something we need to explore.
How did you become involved in that as a specialty in your practice?
It kind of evolved. I started off doing mostly car wreck cases and workers' compensation cases, and then I progressed into doing more medical negligence cases.
Okay.
And then kind of as a subset of that, I got involved in nursing home cases. I think nursing home cases are really interesting to work on. There are a lot of guidelines that need to be followed by these nursing homes. And what you can almost do in these cases is you can evaluate whether or not the guidelines are being followed. Almost the injury will show that the guidelines weren't followed. So it's fun for me to kind of get into the regulations, get into the rules, and try to figure out whether a facility has done or has not done what they're supposed to do.
So where do those guidelines come from? State government, the federal government, the local municipality? How does that work?
Great question. They're mostly federal guidelines, okay, that dictate the staffing on what these facilities are supposed to do. And there's also a subset of state laws that apply as well. But most of it's Medicare-related regulations that these facilities are supposed to follow.
So as I mentioned, I think we have an aging population. More and more people probably will be going into nursing homes. Are you seeing the number of cases rising because of that?
I'm seeing not only the number of cases rising because of the number of people going into the facilities, but also the economy, I think, is playing a role in it too.
Interesting.
What we're seeing is a lot of understaffing at the facilities. Mm-hmm. They are trying to cut back on personnel, cut back on nursing staff, and what that's doing is actually creating the bigger problem. I mean, most of these facilities are full, their beds are all full, and they're happy about that. They want their beds to be full. But where they're trying to cut back is on staff. So the staff isn't there to give the people the attention that they require, and that's when we're seeing the injuries.
So these nursing homes are privately owned and operated, right?
Correct.
But they have to follow those federal guidelines, right?
All of them, regardless of their size, have to follow the guidelines. And what you'll see is, it's hard. One of my challenges as a lawyer doing these nursing homes is trying to figure out who owns the facility.
Really?
Yeah, it's a shell game. There's so many different entities that operate these things, and there are a lot of national organizations. ResCare, for example, is one.
Okay.
Many different subsidiaries within ResCare.
Interesting.
Trying to find out who is the actual owner of this facility. So they are private companies. Some of them are publicly traded. Smaller group homes, but then you have these large corporate structures above them.
How would someone initially think that they might have a claim? So let's say I've got a loved one in a nursing home. It could be a parent, it could be an aunt, an uncle, a brother, whatever. And I'm suspicious possibly that something's not right. Take me through that process.
Usually trust your gut. Usually if you suspect something's not right, if you see something that doesn't just seem right, if your loved one's not acting right, that's usually a sign something's not right. I always tell people, trust your gut. Your gut's almost always going to lead you in the right direction. Whether or not you ultimately have a case depends on what particularly is going on. Things we see a whole lot of are medication errors, big time. You know, people not getting their medicine on time, not getting the right levels, not having the medicine given at all. So that's big, and you'll see a change in their mental status as a result of that. A lot of people will kind of lose, I don't want to say lose their life, but their sense of just being. They kind of fade out. They're kind of in a daze. They're a little bit in la-la land. That's a sign that perhaps there's a medication going on.
So is that typically because that the worker has been negligent or incompetent or both? Or
Great question.
Yeah.
What I find in most of these nursing home cases, it's not just an event. It's usually a process that leads up to the event that causes the injury. And it can be a lack of training, it could be understaffing, it could be just one bad employee. So there are a variety of different levels that you need to look at when you're evaluating these cases to really find out what the cause is.
Ben, tell me about when you first got to know John and when people call you, how you form that relationship, because I'm already learning just now that this is a very complicated scenario when you're looking at a possible claim.
Right, and one of the things that I talked about before is that you can't focus you use specialty, but we have to be careful. It's the focus practice. You can't focus your practice and be good at everything you do, because you want to make sure that the clients that call us that may have a loved one that's in a nursing home, that may have a claim, are getting someone that has been there, that knows those guidelines, that have had that experience, and that really has drilled down on that, and can focus on the time. So I've gotten to know John for a long time, and if there's someone that calls our firm, if someone is there out watching tonight and thinks, gosh, this may be something I need to talk to somebody about, call us, or we're going to put you in touch with John. John will meet with you, and it's the same thing that we've talked about before. These are free consultations.
Yeah.
So our firms work together as partners. John's going to be the one doing the heavy lifting and getting involved in the claim and really take over and hit the ground running with it. But we're going to be there too. So it's a great partnership that we formed for cases where we associate John to help us with nursing home cases.
And once again, WhitleyLawFirm.com is the website, and the 800 number on your screen as well. John, how do people get in touch with you?
They can go to my website. It's McCabe Law Offices, McCabe, M-C-C-A-B-E,
Okay.
Law Offices. They call me in Cary, 919-833-3370, or they call Ben's firm, and they'll put us in touch. It's fun. Ben was talking about how we have worked together. It's fun for us. You know, we think the client benefits to have two law firms working together,
Absolutely.
two, I think, very capable law firms, experienced law firms,
Right.
who have fun working together. And we get to help this client out. So it's a win-win situation for the client.
And I was also interested, when you were mentioning some of you see medication errors, what other issues do you see a lot that cause these claims to happen?
Great question. Falls are the big one. A lot of falls. Falls should not happen. They're deemed never events by the federal government, meaning they should never happen within a healthcare facility. And what a nursing home is supposed to do is they're supposed to do an assessment of people once they get there to figure out what they're at risk of happening. You know, like a fall risk. You do, you know, what are the medications they're on? Do they have problems ambulating? Do they have dementia and Alzheimer's? Do they get confused?
Now, what do you mean by ambulating?
Walking. Thanks.
Walking.
Good,
Okay.
Good. Walking. You know, do they need a wheelchair, a cane, some type of walker device, something like that? They just have problems getting about.
Right.
And when you get into those situations, you're at a fall risk. And once somebody's identified as a fall risk, you're supposed to take certain precautions to make sure that person doesn't fall. And there's simple things to do. You know, lower the bed to the lowest level possible. Put alarms on people. Move them closer to the nursing station so you can keep an eye on them. Very simple fixes that make these things preventable. Unfortunately, a lot of facilities don't do what they should do.
So you see a lot of falls, you see misappropriation of medications, things like that. You know, what about just all in all negligence, not paying attention to the person's needs? Does that happen?
Exactly right, sure. What's supposed to happen is these facilities, in an ideal situation, if you're going to really try to find the best nursing home possible, you'd want to find a facility that's staffed so that the nurses and the nursing assistants can spend up to about 3 hours a day with your particular person.
Okay.
Unfortunately, what we see is 5 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day.
That's a big difference.
It's a huge difference, and that's why I have a job, okay, is because these facilities have not enough staff so that the people can't get the care that they need, so that these interventions, these precautions aren't taken. The staff, you know, these poor people, they're not getting paid very much at all. These nursing assistants that do the in and out work at these facilities, they're $9, $10 an hour employees. Okay, and they're having to do really hard work. I mean, really, really hard work. It's not flattering work that they get to do.
Yeah, I understand. When you look at that scenario and you talked about what a person should look for in a quality nursing home, obviously they should go visit that nursing home. They should talk. Who do they talk to when they go visit?
Well, you're going to get an administrative person who's going to sit there, walk you through. Maybe the executive director may walk you through and have a meeting with you. And they'll tell you about the facility and walk you through it. And that'll give you a little sense of the facility. But I've seen problems at facilities that looked really good on the outside and facilities that looked really bad on the outside. Just by the way it looks shouldn't give you enough comfort in terms of whether or not it's a good facility. There are a lot of things you can do as a consumer to go out and investigate these nursing homes.
How do you do that? Where do you go?
The best thing to do is the state of North Carolina, the Division of Health Service Regulation, has a website. And you can go on that website, you can look up a particular facility. These facilities are inspected every year by the state.
So the way the state inspects restaurants around the state, they do it for nursing homes.
Exactly.
Same thing. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
And these folks will go in there and they will look, and sometimes these are unannounced visits, kind of like OSHA too, with the workplace safety. They'll go in there and look at these facilities and find out if there are deficiencies going on. And they will have certain ratings, you know, where they're satisfactory or not satisfactory. And that's something that people can go look at to find out whether or not this is a facility that has a history of problems.
I would be concerned with cleanliness and making sure that it is a clean facility. Do you see a lot of dirty facilities?
Oh, sure. I mean, you're going to see that, especially with the incontinence issues that go on in these facilities. And that's something that could lead to cases, too. Incontinence can certainly lead to bed sores, and we may talk about those a little bit later.
Absolutely. We are going to take a short break right now, but John McCabe is joining us for Attorneys on Call, and John's focus area is nursing home claims and what can happen to a loved one or someone that you know in a nursing home. We're going to talk some more in our next segment about what to look for if you think you may have a claim, and then what you're going to do about it next. So we're going to be back with more on Attorneys on Call.
I'm Bob Whitley, the voice of North Carolina accident victims.
Bob helped me get the surgery I needed when I was hit by a drunk driver.
If you're hurt, I'd like to be your voice too. Call Whitley Law, 800-785-5000.
I went to assist with a car accident, and during that time I was involved in my own vehicle collision. They provided me with all the information I needed. If I called and needed money for physical therapy during the time of the case, they helped. If I wasn't getting my prescriptions filled, they helped. They were there 100% of the time. It was a warm feeling to know that there were people that I could call, and if I had a problem during this time, that they were going to fix it.
For your free consultation, call Whitley Law Firm at 800-785-5000. Call us now and get the Whitley Advantage.
I'm Bob Whitley, the voice of North Carolina accident victims.
Bob helped me get the physical therapy I needed when a texting driver hit me.
If you're hurt, I'd like to be your voice too. Call Whitley Law, 800-785-5000.
Welcome back to Attorneys on Call. Great segment that we have lined up for you now, talking about nursing home claims that affect many of us. And John McCabe is our visiting attorney who works closely with the Whitley Law Firm on these cases. And John, in our last segment, you mentioned bed sores being an issue for a lot of people in nursing homes and how that can create a claim. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Bed sores are probably the #1 case that I see that comes in the door about a nursing home. Bed sores, people think bed sores is a little blister. It's not. It's a huge soft tissue injury that will go down, sometimes eat all the way to the bone. And what happens is it's a pressure injury.
Okay.
We should stop calling them pressure sores or whatever. They're really a pressure injury. What happens is just from having a bony part of your body lay and have some pressure against a bed or some other type of flat surface. And what it does is it starts to blister the skin. If I put my foot up here right now and just left it on there, it would start to get red. And if I kept it there for hours and hours, the redness would become an open wound, and then it would get deeper into the tissues. We talked about never events on the last segment.
Yeah, falls being a never event.
Falls are never events. They stage pressure injuries. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they become unstageable, which are so bad that's when you're getting into the bowels and into the bone. Stage 3 and 4 are also never events. They should never, ever happen.
Okay.
For me, when somebody calls my office and say, I have a bed sore case, I take a picture of it, and almost always I think that's the case. There are some bed sores that are unavoidable, okay? And you need to try to look at the case, and you got to look at the particular person's medical condition to find out whether or not it's avoidable or unavoidable. But 95% of these bed sores are completely avoidable.
So what happens when that person does call you and says, you know what, my loved one has a bed sore, and can you look into this?
First of all, that person deserves a pat on the back because they've recognized that negligence has most likely happened. So what I always tell them to do, I said the first thing you do is try to get a photograph, and then we need to sit down and talk. There are a lot of times people call in and I feel they don't need a lawyer. The injuries may not be such that it would require a lawyer. The negligence may not have occurred. There may be bad judgment, but not necessarily negligence. And not everything that happens at a nursing home is negligence. On a bed sore case, however, I always say we need to sit down and talk. It is almost per se something we need to look at.
And take us through some of those cases that you maybe have had, and from when you got that initial consultation to basically following that through.
The most fascinating case I have, and I can't name the facility that this took place, it was a case that came in the door, and I thought it was a fall case. I thought it was one of these preventable fall cases where the person had multiple falls. And if a person starts having falls, then they certainly become fall risk, and you should have these interventions taken. This person had fallen and had become a quadriplegic because of this fall.
Because of the fall?
Because of the fall. And this was like the 5th fall that he had.
Wow.
So we said, well, this is a fall case. But then as we got into the case more, we realized the fall was actually caused by a medication error.
Interesting.
This is a guy who had a history of seizures, and he was on an anti-seizure medicine. And the facility wasn't giving him his seizure medicine in the proper amounts. So he would fall, they'd send him off to the ER, they'd do blood tests, they would find out his therapeutic levels of his medicines weren't right, they'd send him back, they wouldn't get the medications right, he'd fall again. And on the 5th fall, he has this catastrophic event, and it's a horrible thing. It's a horrible way for a person to end their life in that type of state. You know?
Do you see that periodically? Because there seems to be, in a nursing care situation, there's so many different layers of things that go on. You're probably uncovering a lot of different things like that.
Absolutely. Almost that same case just came in from the mountains a couple weeks ago. I had somebody call in, again, falls leading to a quadriplegia. They become a quad. And then what happened is even after the person became the quad, they develop bed sores. And what happens is once you don't have that mobility to shift your weight,
right,
you develop the bed sores. And they're easily preventable again. The way you avoid a bed sore, it's super simple. All you got to do is rotate everybody every 2 hours. That's all you have to do.
Okay.
They're completely avoidable.
Okay.
Just take the pressure off of it. Some of the cases I had a case down in Fayetteville where they didn't turn this poor woman for 72 hours at all. And her skin was intact. She wasn't obese.
So for 3 days, same spot.
Exactly
didn't
right.
move.
Exactly right. And she develops, you know, by the time they uncover this wound, okay, they finally turn her over, she's got a wound this big on her back that ultimately led to her death. Okay, what happens is you get these wounds, they become infected. Exactly.
MRSA and things like that, right?
MRSA leads to sepsis, septic shock, death.
What else can you tell our viewers right now about what they need to look for and what they really need to, other than just taking pictures, but is it a case of being more diligent about keeping those nursing care facilities more accountable, or what can we do as general consumers to kind of help this situation?
Most people who come into my office, probably most people that come into Ben's office, they don't want to be problems. They don't want to be one of those people who are causing problems. And what happens is that backfires, that mentality backfires against folks in a nursing home. Because of the staffing and the understaffing that's going on, if you're not in there kind of pushing these people and really holding them accountable, problems are going to happen and something bad's going to happen, almost invariably. So don't hesitate. It's hard. It's not comfortable for people to go into one of these facilities and really ask to speak to the director of nursing to make sure the right care is given. But you kind of have to be, I'll say, a pest.
Okay.
And I mean that in the most polite way possible. You need to make sure these facilities are doing what they're supposed to.
You said something earlier, John. You said trust your gut.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably very valuable, right? Because you walk into a facility and what does your gut first tell you? And I think most of us probably would have this conception of a nursing facility similar to a hospital. You don't really want to be there, you know, per se, but if you do have to go there, you want it to be just right, right?
I mean, what's the facility's job? Take care of you.
Take care of you.
Take care of you. Make sure you get your medicines on time. Make sure you get your food. Make sure you get your water. Try to give you some things to enjoy. Yeah, simple, basic things.
When you talk about a bed sore, and I think it was very valuable for you to tell our viewers that we're not talking about a little like pimple or something. We're talking about a injury that leads to death.
That's exactly right. And then there's the National Pressure Ulcer Advisory Panel. It just came out a couple weeks ago. It says we're going to quit calling these things pressure sores. We're going to start calling them pressure injuries. And that's exactly what they need to be called.
That really fits.
And they're horrific. They are so bad. I mean, go online and just type in pressure sore. They're called the cubitus ulcers, pressure sore. And you see how horrific these things are. I've had some that have been this big on people. And you get them, you know, your lower back, your butt, your heels, elbows, sometimes on the back of your head, wherever that kind of the pressure and the weight's bared.
Thanks for being here and educating us on this issue. It's been wonderful. And Ben, thanks for bringing John on the program.
Absolutely, I learned a lot. And if anybody out there wants to talk with John and us, just give us a call and we can make that arrangement.
And go to WhitleyLawFirm.com anytime, and they'll get right back to you. Thanks so much for joining us today for this edition of Attorneys on Call. We'll see you next time right here.